What are you doing? It's a lovely day, isn't it? For a cat. Hey, welcome. Yeah. Saturday afternoon. What better than a time for a little patio story or two? What do you think? Huh? With a cat. Anyway, Saturday, San Diego. It's lovely. It's about 72 degrees, perfectly mild, and it's time to here. Let's just get right into it. Let's get right into it and see what's going on here. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah. Let's get rid of this stuff. Let's see. Who's joined us today? Hey, Newport girl. Nice. Andre from Tucson. Nice to see you along. How are you? Yeah, you know, it's been more than a week since I've done a patio story here. And it's such a lovely day, and it's 5:30 or so. Dar's hanging out with me. There's a reason the guitar is outside today. We'll get into some of that here shortly. But you know what? What better on a hot California or a hot summer day just about anywhere? Yeah, that sunshine is just, look at that, huh? Sun is picking that thing up and glowing on my shirt. Hey, so yeah, we're doing the, it's the Etude Rosé. 2018, I'm sure. 2019, of course. So, we're going to take a little journey today, I guess. We're going to take a little journey through some more storytelling. I'm going to talk about experiences in some of my earlier travels in my life, back to an island archipelago nation called Indonesia. You ever been there? So here, I've got a little cheese plate going here. Very minor, you know, it's early. But what I've got here, I just wanted to share. I'm so excited, you know. This is the first summer in 5 years I'm not outside the country traveling. So the first summer I've actually had time to maybe enjoy this little patio. And with so many things to explore in this lockdown situation, I've always grown herbs, and I've always had a tomato plant or two, usually the little cherry tomatoes. Welcome. Put on the specs here. Let's see what's going on. Steve, nice to see you. Nefer, Tari, great. Hey, so as I said, lockdown, you know, we try to sometimes discover new things. So I really got more into the garden here. Now you can see Dar back here is in it's a little raised planter, which has got most of my herbs in it. And she loves that lemongrass she's actually chewing on. There's another cat over here, the rescue, that you guys have seen if you've watched Patio Stories in the past. That's Dice. Dice was abused sometime in the old days. I don't know. I found her roaming my yard, him, and put signs up and never could find, posted things on Nextdoor. And so Dar and Dice don't really get along. I mean, they tolerate each other, but they would have much better lives separate. Dar just wants her house back. This is her house, not mine. But that's enough to say that exploring a little bit of patio gardening. So my tomatoes already, the little cherry ones, these guys, have already started to bear fruit. And for the first time I planted, and I never knew, cucumbers, except these are Persian cucumbers. These are the little more, less seeds and sweeter. And this guy, even though somebody's attacking it, meaning bugs, it's an ongoing battle, of course, if you've ever done any gardening, and I'm not really a gardener, or farthest thing from a green thumb. But this plant has given me at least a dozen cucumbers already, and we're only in the second week of July, and they're little ones. So I love to make a little cucumber tomato salad, sometimes throw a little arugula in there. Anyway, more on that later. So this is Patio Stories. For those of you who perhaps this is your first time, I usually spend once a week 20, 30 minutes outside here in my patio here in San Diego and share stories from my travels all over the world. And today there's kind of a sequence of stories I'm going to share with you that relate to relate to the guitar, and I'll come up into it. But so many years ago, when I first discovered the joy, the thrill, the reward of traveling, the way it makes us open up, the way it makes us more tolerant, and to appreciate truly people, and of course food around the world, the culture, the cuisine, and of course when you connect with people over that food, that's the most amazing part of traveling. So I'm a skier. I love to ski, and a bunch of guys, we rented a ski house up in Lake Tahoe here. So during the winter time, I could leave my home in Orange County, and I could spend a weekend up in Lake Tahoe. And we had like 10 of us all pitch in on this house, so it's very inexpensive, and you had a place you could stay for, you paid it all up front for the 3 or 4 months. And I that one winter time, I had reacquainted with an old friend, John Angus. We call him Johnny A. And at that time, I was starting to plan my one of my first really long-term travel trips. I was going to go for 2 months traveling through the Indonesian archipelago. I was going to visit at least 6, 7 islands, maybe 8, and explore different cultures, different people. And although I didn't have my motorcycle at that point, the plan was to just rent a motorcycle and travel the islands by a rented motorcycle. So as the more I talked about this and more I shared my enthusiasm and my passion, my excitement for this big trip I was going to do. Now remember, this is in January and February, and I'm planning on leaving in June or July. So Johnny A., who's one of these buddies who's renting the house with me, he's like, wow, that sounds really good. And I says, you should come. Why don't you come? Now, I am a solo traveling kind of guy, but I was really, Johnny A. and I had, we had the same kind of ski skill set, so we could ski the same runs, and he loved a lot of the same. He's a deadhead, loved a lot of the music that we liked, and just had a great attitude. So he says, why not? I'll take off for 2 months. And so we traveled to Indonesia, and then the trip covered many islands, such as Java, Sumatra, Bali, of course, Sulawesi. There's some smaller islands up in the north off the coast of Sulawesi, close kind of to the Philippines. Bunikan, Manado, Saladan. Actually, Manado is the town, but. So Johnny A. and I go, and there was a third guy, a lawyer I knew from Los Angeles. He joined us too. By the time we'd been traveling around and we got to Bali, we rented motorcycles, and the motorcycle I rented, which was a little 125 Honda or Suzuki, a little Japanese bike, that was it was a 2-stroke, so that meant it's very noisy. But on top of that, the muffler should have been replaced 2 years ago. So this bike was just beyond noisy. Whenever we were running through villages, riding through villages, people would put their fingers in their ears. That's how loud my motorcycle was. Johnny A. was on more of a scooter, and Catman, Steven, the other third guy, had a bike like mine, but it had at least a normal muffler on it. Well, we're cruising through this remote part of north, I guess you'd call it northwestern Bali. And people are putting their fingers through their ears, and we go through this one village, and the motorcycle is so loud that this family who has a handful of pigs, pigs, Well, one of these pigs gets so scared. It's a massive pig. It, like a dog, except this is a pig, gets so frightened, jets across the road and runs right into Johnny A's motorcycle, his little scooter. Now, he managed to keep the bike up, but there's something else wrong with the bike. So we stop on the side of the road, and sure enough, his his rear brake, which is a little foot brake lever, had bent and was kind of jammed up against the frame of the motorcycle, twisted underneath there, and he couldn't get it out. It was a big side of the road kind of craziness. Now, everybody had made fun of me on this trip, by the way, because I had decided to bring a little, what I called a little motorcycle toolkit. It was just a small, it was probably no bigger than a toiletry kit. But I had some key things in there, a screwdriver, a couple wrenches, these kinds of things that that for now I decided, don't worry, Johnny A, let me see this motorcycle. So he sticks it on its side stand on the side of the road, and I get my little toolkit out now and start prying and bending and forcing. I grab a couple rocks from the side of the road, brace things, and on the side of the road, after getting run into by a pig, I fixed Johnny A's motorcycle and got the brake lever working again, and we continued. And there's a lot of things that can happen to you in traveling around the world. Crazy things that you will stay with you forever. But I guarantee you'll probably never run into anybody else other than Johnny A, who got run into on a motorcycle by a massive pig. That's right, a pig on a motorcycle. Crazy times, crazy times. So, while we're in Indonesia, we don't take the same motorcycle from island to island. We just rent a different motorcycle on each island. So, we're there for 2 months. Another time, we're in the island of Sumatra. We're out searching for. There's two things interesting there. There's orangutans, and there is a reserve, a place where the people that have domesticated orangutans, which is illegal, and have to get. And if they get caught, these have to go back to the wild. But they need to be reacclimated into that. So there was a reserve where they were taking care of these orangutans and helping them acclimate and be able to survive and back in their natural habitat. There's also a place in northern Sumatra called Bukittinggi, and Bukittinggi is one of the only few. I think there's 2 or 3 places on the planet where they are a matriarchal society, which means that everything is inherited, everything comes through the mother's side of the family. But anyway, we were searching for a guest house to stay in, and we ended up in a little town somewhere near Bukittinggi, and a very remote guest house. It's one of these places that didn't have a shower. You peed in a hole, or pooped in a hole in the ground, squatted over it. And to take a shower, they called it a mandi. Mandi is like a word for bath in Bahasa, Indonesia. And you would there would be a bucket and a big tub of water. It was they built a actual, vessel, a reservoir, if you will, for water. And then you would just bend over, lean, you'd brush yourself up with some nice slathering and soap, and then you'd get that and throw the water over you. But the problem is that in this was in the mountains of Sumatra, that in the morning when you usually take a shower, it's pretty cold. So lathering you up and everything, throwing that water on you is not something you look forward to in the morning. And the coffee that you get in Indonesia, they call it kopi susu, coffee with milk, if you do, is done with a very fine ground coffee. Now, they grow coffee, as you know, especially in Sumatra, some great coffee. But the coffee you still get in a little guest house like this is ground really fine. They don't filter it. It's kind of like Turkish coffee in a sense. And you drink the coffee with the grounds in it, so it's a little bit gritty. But anyway, as we're in this guest house, this one guy who's the son of the owner, and he approaches us. He's a very curious lad, but has a really thick accent. I can speak a little bit of Indonesia at this time. Apa kabar, kabar baik, kabar bagus. hati-hati, sedikit-sedikit, a few handful of phrases, and kamu cantik, which means you're pretty. Useful kind of phrases that we share, but it was still very difficult to talk to him. He wanted to practice his English, and then he asked us where we're from, and when he found out we were from the United States of America, his face just grew red. It lit up. He was just like, and he went right into this voice that was so different than the high-pitched, very choppy accented Indonesian mix of English, and he goes, "You're listening to Radio America. I'm Terry Nelson, and this is the news of the world." And I'm like, where did that voice come from? This kid. I said, do that again. He says, "You're listening to the Voice of America. This is Terry Nelson, and here's the news of the world." Now, the Voice of America is a government paid for national radio service that you get on shortwave radios. And up until probably in the last 15 years, 20 years at the most, maybe 10 years ago, we were able to actually hear it in the United States. And it was called something else originally, but it was started in the 1940s. It was a Franklin FDR project that, because of the use the Nazis and the Russians of propaganda used over the radio waves, the U.S. decided that we need to make sure that we can tell the Allied troops and the Allies and those people living in those Allied countries, or countries that were being overthrown by the Germans, the real story of what was going on in the war, and not the propaganda that the fascists, the Germans, were throwing out at people. So this kid had all the radio he had was a shortwave radio, and even here in the 1990s, he's listening and tuning in to the shortwave radio in the Voice of America, and he would mimic. He just could listen to it, mimic that voice exactly, and then he'd fall right back to that high-pitched, very choppy, heavy accented English. But he would say, "Hi, you're listening," and he'd go deep with the throat. "You're listening to the Voice of America. This is the Voice of America. I'm Terry Nelson, and here's the news you need." Whatever it was. It was perfect. I just couldn't believe it. So you imagine that if that's the only source of entertainment you have in this remote place, they hardly had any English, obviously no running water. The electricity was probably, turned off at nighttime. I have no idea. But he would tune in. He showed us the radio, and he'd tune in to Voice of America, and he would learn his language. He'd learn his English from there, but he could mimic the newscasters. Very, very funny. So Indonesia, it was again, this is the first trip I took that was more than a couple weeks. So I'm going on a 2-month trip. We're about a month into this trip, and our next island that we're going to see is Sulawesi. And Sulawesi is one of the larger islands in Indonesia. There's 13,677 by any estimate islands that make up the archipelago, largest in the world, of Indonesia. And the major city in the south is called Ujung Pandang. And our idea was to fly to Ujung Pandang and then take a bus, which was like 14 hours, to a place called Torajaland. And then what we would do is take that bus back to Ujung Pandang and catch another plane to the far eastern part of Sulawesi. Mostly, Indonesia is one of the largest Muslim populous countries in the world, but there are pockets of areas, and there's a Christian part in the eastern part, around area called Manado. And it's also known for some of the most amazing coral reefs, and scuba diving and snorkeling. And our idea was to go to a place called Bunaken. There's an island right off of Manado, and it was, at least at the time, I know a lot of the coral reefs are in big danger due to climate change. It's really sad. But it was a preserve. It was like a national park, an underwater national park. So Johnny A. and I wanted to go see the fishes and to hang out on the islands. And this was at the point where it was very under-touristed. Since then, many years ago, now it's some of the islands we went and basically stayed in tents, have large high-rise hotels, which, it's again, tourism, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You want people to grow. But nonetheless, we go up there. And this is in mid-August. And now I'm going to break out the guitar for a minute here. So, I'm a guitar, I'm a bit of a hack, but I like to play. I mostly write my own songs. So as I've been, and I didn't bring a guitar on this trip. I brought a toolkit for my motorcycle, but I didn't bring a guitar. But anytime we would stay somewhere and there was a guitar, I would obviously, get a few minutes or maybe a half an hour or so in. So I'd been working on this little chord progression. I was writing a song about the places I was going to. I was called it Nesia, and it kind of goes like this. Nesia, this is Nesia. I says I'm going to Indonesia. Now in Java, trekking through the jungle, be careful as you go, the malarial mosquito. Yeah, you know what else they got up there? Orangutans. Actually, I was mixed the verses. So anyway, I'm writing this song as I'm going along, all these places, called Nesia. Here we are now up in this place near the underwater national park, and it's about the time of the Indonesian Independence Day, which is August, I think, 16th. And we had contracted with this group to go out diving, learn how to dive, to go snorkeling, go stay on the islands. And when we were done with that, we came back. We still had a couple days on the mainland. And Ricky, the owner of the dive club, and he also had a little hotel on the mainland, he said, why don't we go? We're having a big celebration. Everybody from around this part of the island comes there. There's live music. They're cooking out. They're doing all kinds of things. And he says, why don't you guys come with us? We're like, perfect. I'd love to celebrate your Independence Day. So Indonesia was for many years obviously under the Dutch, the Netherlands, was part of one of their colonies. But August 16th, and I don't know the year, that is what they celebrate is there. So we go to this big fairgrounds. There's a stage with all kinds of lighting, and there's it's packed. There's at least 5,000 people spread on this fairgrounds. And as we're going there, Johnny A and I and Catman, we all look a little bit odd because we're the only really white people, and me, I'm very white, in this sea of brown faces. And that makes everything very curious to us. So people are coming up to us, and a lot of them want to practice their English. That's one thing you always find. They want to practice their English. And, after talking to, 15, 20 people, this one guy who was taller than most others, and he spoke very good English. And he really started asking deep. He said, where are you from? He was telling him California, and, what do you guys do? And next thing you know, he said, are you guys musicians? Aren't there a big music industry in California? And I looked at Johnny A, and I've been playing my guitar. And he goes, yeah, of course, we love music. We play. And Johnny plays the drums. I play guitar. He's like, really? The next thing I know, the guy disappears. Someone else calls him. He comes back and he says, will you play for us? And I said, what? He says, will you play for us? There's 5,000 people here on a big stage. He says, go up on the stage. The band can play with you. So I was like, really? I look at Johnny A. He looks back at me. And he says, well, we don't really have any songs prepared or anything. He says, oh, it doesn't matter. Just go sing something. So we look at each other, and Catman says, "I don't want to have anything to do with it." So next thing you know, they're guiding us through the crowd, moving us through, up to the stage, and we stand on the side, and that tall guy goes out and he gets the microphone from the band, and he says, "I want to bring to you a very special surprise," and the audience kind of gets quieter. And he's talking in Indonesian, but this is what he says. He's saying, very surprised, because we can tell. He says, from California. And then you hear everybody clapping. It's like it's a huge sea of faces out there. So Johnny A and I go out, and they put a couple microphones in front of us, and we decide that let's just sing. We're going to sing a Grateful Dead song. We know it. We can harmonize it. The first days are the hardest days. Don't you worry anymore. Uncle John's Band. This is my friend Johnny Angus. So it's Uncle John's Band. It's kind of a very simple melody. We could easily do it. We sing. We get through the chorus. We get through the verses mostly. I'm sure we forgot some of the words. And the crowd goes crazy again. And the guitar player, who's hanging out, meanwhile, had been talking to the tall guy, and he told him that I play the guitar. So he hands me the guitar. And the drummer comes up to Johnny A and hands him the sticks. They want us to play the instruments. So I turned to Johnny A, and he had been, banging on, cushions and chairs and whatever else, while I was, learning and writing this song, Nesia. So I said, let's just play Nesia, because you know what? If they don't understand any of the other words, they'll understand Nesia, Indonesia. So I get the guitar, and it's an electric guitar. It's in tune. I'm up there, and I hit a couple things. I hit a couple power chords like. And I stop, and Johnny A has been hitting on the drums, and everybody's cheering. They're going crazy now. But I said, okay, hold on. I wrote this song. I'm talking to 5,000 people out there. I wrote this song for you. For you. I love you. And I'm like doing this. He goes, Nesia, I says, when will I go back? Anyway, I won't do the whole song for you. Maybe one day I will. But here we are on stage with this band playing along. They kind of figured out the melody, and there's a guy on keyboards just jamming a little bit out, and the bass player is boom, 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 boom. And at the end of the song, by the time the song's getting to an end, the crowd is pushed right up against the stage. I mean, I'm looking down there and feeling this must be what U2, the Rolling Stones, whoever feel when they've got this massive humanity pushing up against. And then I noticed in the rear of the fairgrounds, they've opened up the gate, and a guy is coming in a Toyota Land Cruiser, driving towards the stage, having to push people or getting out of the way. And finally, the Land Cruiser gets right near the stage, and the tall guy comes back, leads us off the stage, and says, for your safety. And he walks us over and puts us in the back of the Land Cruiser, which is being driven by Ricky at this point, we see. And it turns around and starts to drive out. It's probably 300, 500 yards, to the gate, with all this big fairgrounds. And as we're driving along, people are running alongside of it, trying to touch, put their hands in the windows to touch us. And it's a surreal experience, to say the least, to be on stage performing for 5,000 people who don't speak my language, to do a song that I barely have even finished with the lyrics, and but yet, it was about them. And every time I said Nesia, something, there's a little mix-up. He says, Nesia, I'm loving this place called Nesia. and they just are cheering, and then they're trying to get and touch us as we're leaving. We leave the fairgrounds and the big Indonesian independence celebration behind, and and Johnny A and I look at it, and Catman, the third guy that was traveling with us, he's in the back of the Land Cruiser. They'd already found him, and he's like, I can't believe you guys did that. That was just amazing, impressive. And I was told the next morning when we woke up that we were on the news on the local news station that night because they had cameras there. And though we were never able to get a copy of that clip, the memory is emblazoned on my brain forever. I don't need it. But it is just something. It's too bad. I should have called Johnny A before I went into these stories because he's so much part of them. Have him kind of join us on the Patio Stories. But anyway, so that's Indonesia. Getting a motorcycle run and hit and damaged by a massive pig, to finding a guy in the middle of nowhere in Sumatra who has been listening and can mimic the voice and accent of a Radio America, Voice of America, rather. Voice of America. Did I say Radio America? No. You're listening to the Voice of America. This is Terry Nelson, and here's the news you need to know. He had it perfect to the point of us being rock stars for our barely 15 minutes of fame there on Indonesian Independence Day in Manado, up on the island of Sulawesi. So, fun stuff. Hey, a quick little update as well. I wanted to, for those of you who've been following me, if you've seen any of my other patio stories, all the replays, even though I do them live on Instagram, I do put them up on the IGTV here as well as on YouTube. So you can certainly find the replays. This is, I think, my 7th one. But for those who've been following or even seen my Journeys webcast, which I do on Mondays, I had a little medical scare about 3 weeks ago. Gotta get some drinking in here. Don't you love a good rosé? Yeah, so I had this little scare. I got taken to the hospital, was there overnight. And I still don't have an official diagnosis, but basically it was an inner ear, maybe an infection, maybe it was a type of vertigo. And I've now had... I'm actually going to post a video later tonight. You have to check it out on YouTube. So there's a maneuver that people who do get vertigo because of crystals that come off in your ear and then get lodged and stuck in one of your inner ear canals. There's 4 of them there. And to diagnose that, there's some wacky guy invented this chair that puts you in all these weird positions, and they take pictures of your eye. Or video your eye to see as it moves. There's a certain way it will move when you're in a certain position, and that's how they can diagnose and identify which of those 4 canals you may have a crystal, and that could be causing this. For me, it's just this very lightheadedness. If I go down and lift up really quick, I feel a little bit dizzy. I don't feel comfortable enough to get on my motorcycle. That's even right now, even though it's been 3 weeks. So, I am due to have an MRI of my brain on Thursday, and then the following week I'll go back to this guy, this Dr. Ian Purcell, and you got to go check out the YouTube video after it posts. Actually, it's being posted tomorrow. I think I set it as a premiere. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. It'll be on my YouTube channel. I've got video of this wacky chair, but even more important, this doctor, as I get to the top of the elevator, opens up into his lobby. He's got a motorcycle sitting right there opposite the elevator. It's a Triumph from the 1950s. It's an old, and there's pictures of Steve McQueen everywhere. He's a big fan of Steve McQueen. I thought initially it might be the motorcycle Steve McQueen who used to do his own stunts, who jumped, did amazing stuff in the old classic movie The Great Escape. But it's not the same bike. Or the same model. But minute those doors open and I see a bike, and he's also got like a jet belt, one of these jet packs. The guy flies around on a jet belt too. So he's a daredevil. Anyway, I talked about it on the last Patio Stories. I'll go back and see him. Hopefully we'll get a diagnosis. I'll know what's going on, and I can be able to get back on my motorcycle. Because even though we are quarantined and shut down, I can social distance pretty easily on a motorcycle, and that's a something I want to do. I want to go camping up in the sequoias, whatever, you know. Let's see. Oh, Lika. Okay, I'm just kind of looking in there. Lika's from Georgia. She is a awesome winemaker herself, and she knows a lot. Georgian wine is is to be discovered. Good to see you, Lika, man. I can't wait to see you again, face to face, man. All this madness has to go away. Anyway, you got to see Dar. You saw a little bit of dice, little music, a bit of wine. See, Lika, we got a little rosé going here, and. Anyway, I want to thank you for tuning in. Go check out that video that will drop tomorrow at 9 o'clock in California time, or 8 o'clock, 9 or 8 o'clock, about the Epley chair. It'll be on my YouTube channel, WorldRider. And definitely stay tuned for the next Patio Stories. I'm not sure when it will be, but next week sometime. Friday, Thursday, Saturday. It'll be usually late afternoon about this time. So... thanks again. Hey, and if you have any questions, I think I'm one of these Patio Stories. I just want to take questions from anybody and everybody. Submit me through either a comment here on my YouTube channel, and I'll print out a list of those questions, and I'll answer each of them. Whatever you want to know about my travels, where I've been, where I'm going, what I'm doing, life, happiness, anything. We'll do that in one of these Patio Stories. So until then, stay curious, find adventure in whatever and wherever you go, and never stop exploring. Love you guys.